Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is our first employer Q&A series of 2020, and we'll be hosting these events at least once a quarter within the business entrepreneurship and consulting community. Thank you for joining us. Today we're here with Huron Consulting, and they have an awesome presentation prepared, and we have questions. We'll also be able to open up the questions in the chat. So please feel free to drop those questions in the chat whenever you have them, and we can ask them at the given time at the end. My name is Emily Comandera. I work with employers in our business entrepreneurship and consulting career community. I'm joined here by my colleagues, Kayla Noel, who works in advising, and then our career ambassador, Akin, who just joined us this fall. So we're really excited to be here. And as I mentioned again, we'll have a brief presentation, and then we'll also have time for questions at the end. So please feel free to utilize the chat function and just drop those questions in the chat. We'll also be able to answer them at the end. And I'm joined here by our alumni, Janae Allen, who graduated from DePaul, and we're so excited to have her. She's here with her colleagues from Huron Consulting, and they're going to talk a little bit about the opportunities at the firm and have time to answer your questions. So thanks for joining us.
All right, great. Thank you all for joining us, and it's great to see you all. And so before we get started, just wanted to mention I am going to put a link in the chat where you guys are able to use that link. It will redirect you to a portal, and then you'll be able to mark your attendance for this event. So I will go ahead and put that in the chat now. Okay, great. Okay, so this slide here just goes over just a few topics that we will be covering today. So starting off with some introductions, and then going into an overview about our company and who we are, and then going through some practice overviews. And then next we'll have Simi and Justin go through some day in the life of a consultant, so things that they experience within their role. And then lastly, we'll just go through some recruiting timeline discussion. And then lastly, we'll have some Q&A. So for introduction, so hi, my name is Janae Allen, and I am a DePaul alum, as Emily mentioned, and I graduated in 2018 with a degree in human resource management. And I've been with Huron for about 2 years on their campus recruiting team. And outside of my day-to-day role, I am also a part of our African-American iMatter team, where I'm a part of their recruiting and retention subcommittee. And I'll turn it over to Justin to introduce himself as well.
Hi guys, my name is Justin Sakon. I'm an associate with the healthcare capability within Huron. I graduated from DePaul in 2014. Seems like a long time ago now. I've been with Huron for about 2.5 years now, primarily with the workforce capability. I work with the care optimization training team as well as I'm a part of the PI staffing tools methodology team, where we look at performance improvement as a whole. But yeah, excited to talk to you all today.
All right.
Hi everyone, this is Simi Dhaliwal. I graduated from DePaul in 2018. I've been with Huron for about a year and a half now. I'm in the workday practice, which is within higher ed. I'm excited to be here.
Great. Thank you so much, Simi and Justin. So just to kick it off with a company overview. So to start off, just want to give you all a few quick facts about Huron. So we are a consulting firm that serves a variety of different industries, and we were formed in 2002 and also headquartered in Chicago, Illinois. And just a few notable items, we have been awarded for Best Firm to Work For, and then also Best Management Consulting Firm, and then also 7 years in a row just having a perfect score in our Corporate Equality Index as well. And then next, going into our brand and mission. So we are a people-oriented firm that invests in developing its employees, clients, and communities. And so we live through the brand of owning your future. And so what that means is that we empower our people to take responsibility to shape the future that they want. And so ultimately, we know that everyone's track is going to look different, but Huron does provide that support and those resources to help you navigate through that journey. So whether that be through personalized learning, leadership opportunities, or career mobility, Huron will offer all of those just to support you in your journey. And then along with our mission and brands, our values definitely set the tone for how we operate as a firm. And so listed on the slide here, we have all of the values that we hold. And so these are all ingrained within our people, in our culture. And so all 7 of these values set the foundation for how we serve our clients and also interact and work with one another. And we also just commit to hiring people who also align with these values within their work and also their personal lives. And so by doing this, we make sure to uphold our commitment to just integrate our values into everything that we do. And I'll say personally, that is one of the reasons why I chose to join Huron, because I knew that their values that I hold just aligned with those that I hold within my personal life. And it just makes it easier to connect myself with the vision of the firm as well. And then next we have here some just different components that outline our employee and community experience. And so the 2 main ways that employees get involved are through our Huron iMatter teams and also our Helping Hands program. So those are going to be the 2 that I'll go into more detail about. And so to start off, for our iMatter team. So with one of our values being inclusion, we have our 10 employee resource groups that we refer to as iMatter teams. So it just allows us to embrace different interests and different backgrounds and to foster that inclusive environment. And so the neat thing about all of these groups is that they were all homegrown from our employees, just coming together and just knowing that they want just create those different communities for different interests. And so you do not have to align with a specific background to join any of these groups. And so employees can join whatever group that they would have an interest in, as long as it just aligns with, you know, those values and like the backgrounds that they have. And then next on the slide here, so some pictures from our day of service. So Huron also prides itself on giving back to the community and being socially responsible. And so our Huron Helping Hands program does provide us with those opportunities to give back to the community throughout the year. And then we have one day of service where all of the Huron employees will take the day to go and serve and with various different organizations throughout the entire US. And so with these different components, it just shows that Huron support those opportunities to create that community for our employees, and then just create a good employee experience by just giving those opportunities for people to get involved beyond their day-to-day role. And next, I will turn it over to Justin, who will kick us off for our practice overviews.
All right, thank you, Janae. Okay, so before I dive into like specifically healthcare, that's the side that I'm on, and then Simi is actually going to talk a little bit more about higher ed. We just wanted to show you guys all the different businesses that Huron has and our expertise in. So that first one that you see on there is healthcare. So obviously looking at strategy, clinical, finance, operations, and this one we'll dive more into higher education. Simi will talk a little bit more about that. But we also have businesses in life sciences, technology. We have advisory services, as well as enterprise solutions and analytics. Healthcare is definitely our largest offering. I believe it's about 50% of the work that we do is within healthcare. Next slide, Janae. Thank you. All right, so within healthcare itself, it's kind of broken across all the different offerings that we have. So we have revenue cycle teams, workforce management teams, clinical operations teams, med group. I can go on supply chain. I mean, all these different capabilities that come together within the healthcare portion of Huron's business. So the first thing is just looking at strategic direction setting. So we're able to help develop actual plans to drive transformation. So a lot of the work that we do across all of these different capabilities is always going to be data driven. We're able to look at analytics, we're able to look at processes and kind of combine, bring everything together. The goal being to take an integrated approach across all of our capabilities to make sure that we're providing the best possible solutions for healthcare organizations. Financial and operational excellence. We're looking at, we have revenue cycle teams go in. Again, we all come together as a whole, but we'll specifically on the finance side, we'll have our rev cycle teams that will go in and help them really reduce inefficient processes, whether it be from a billing standpoint or ability to increase revenue in other ways, and look at their payment models across the organization. As far as just overall patient outcomes, improving quality, working side by side with the caregivers. We have like I said, we have all of our different groups that do that, whether it be med group that's looking at specific outpatient physician clinics and looking at how we can increase patient throughput and improve processes within the clinics, whether it's from that point or we're looking at it from a workforce side, which is actually the capability that I'm involved in, where we're looking at overall process improvements and labor efficiencies and making sure that the organization is functioning at the highest productivity levels that they can. And overall, and then lastly, we have our clinical team that's actually out on the nursing floors doing interdisciplinary rounds, helping the healthcare leaders on those floors, the nurses and the physicians, really have a good solid process in place to make sure that we're reducing length of stay on the floors and making sure patients are getting the best care that they can and getting out the door as soon as they can without having these crazy hospital stays. But that's in a nutshell healthcare. We could talk about it forever, but just to give you a high level overview. But I'll turn it over to Simi for higher ed.
Thanks, Justin. So for higher ed, we have 4 service lines: strategy, operations, technology, and research. So strategy is really at a high level, how can we drive our vision and how can we incorporate these changes across the entire organization, or in our case, a college or university. Operations, it's more daily. So what kind of design improvements can we do to ultimately affect our daily operations? And then technology is the service line that I fall into. So we're merging, in this case, operations and technology. So what kind of ERP systems can we use that will help drive our daily operations to be the most effective for our institution? And lastly, we have research. So research really focuses on how can we improve what we have today? Where can we increase our productivity for the organization as a whole? And with that, I'll pass it back to Justin for the day in the life of a consultant.
All right, so I will specifically speak to healthcare here, and then I'll pass it along to Simi for higher ed. But we just kind of plugged in what our day-to-day looks like, and every day can look very different in the consulting world, just because that is consulting. Like it's fast-paced, it's fun. There's a lot of stuff going on, but if we were to just kind of break it down into what a general day looks like. When you get to the client side, in the time that we were traveling right now, we're doing all of our work virtually, or most of our work virtually. But at the time that we were traveling, you get to the project site, you get to your client site, I apologize. You'll set up for the week, get all your stuff done, do a lot of your internal meetings, as much as you can on Monday when you get there, but then really starting Tuesday, you're kicking off with all of your client meetings. It can range from one-on-one meetings with your department leaders if you're working in departments in healthcare, if you're going to do observations on patient floors to look at process improvements, or even sitting down in meetings with executive leaders. I think that's probably one of the coolest opportunities I had when I first started at Huron. Was I was one of the only analysts that came onto a project that I was on, and I was actually able to get exposed right from the start. I was going in with our executive leaders to go sit down in executive meetings with hospital CEOs and CFOs and CNOs that, at the time I was like, I have no idea what you guys are doing, but it was a very cool experience because you're able to really soak as much knowledge as you can in, and it just prepares you even more for your own meetings. But anyway, I'm starting to go off topic there, but generally you're attending meetings, working through analytics and any client deliverables you have. A lot of the time you'll be bouncing between meetings, between the team room, between trying to get analysis done, working with with your own teammates and members of your team to have internal meetings, and a lot of the times we try to have our team room have all the capabilities in there so that we can all hear each other. We can all know what's going on with the other capabilities and bounce ideas off of one another. So you'll collaborate with other people. And then at the end of the day, we always like to make sure you take time for yourself. So, you know, at the end of every day for me was dinner, gym, and then you know, generally when your day's full of meetings and whatnot, you spend a couple hours at night trying to just catch up on any work and any deliverables to help prepare you for the next day. Simi?
Yep. And similar to that on the higher ed side, I mean, you start off with, as an analyst, you attend a lot of meetings, you'll take notes, and you'll have a lot of questions in the beginning. I know I had a lot of questions. So what I would do is just jot them down. Like, what does this mean? And so at the end of every meeting, I'd, you know, go up to my manager and, you know, just follow up with them and see, can you explain this process to me? Can you tell me what this is, or what is our overall objective for that meeting? Just to get myself, you know, familiar with the higher ed institution, because it's different from coming in as a student versus as a consultant and looking at it from a different point of view. I thought I knew everything about higher ed, definitely not close to it. And so, you know, coming out from those meetings, you can find a lot of ways where you can make an impact on that project, whether it's further developing your technical skills or just learning something new. And then also just seeing that impact downstream of, you know, this made a huge impact on the client, or it just impacted one person's life and made their job a little bit more easier, and made it much more effective, much more efficient for them to go about their regular day-to-day operations. We can go to the next slide. So for traveling, as Justin mentioned, we're not traveling anymore, or at least during this time, but typically you would travel Monday to Thursday. So you take either the earliest or the morning flight on Mondays, and then you would take a late afternoon flight Thursday to come back home. And then Fridays were kind of typical, either go to the office if you're near an office, or just work from home. And then depending on the project, they sometimes offer remote weeks. So every 3 weeks, your next week could be a remote week, and that's optional. You don't have to take it. It's nice that Huron lets you have that work-life balance where you can take a week off if you just want to be at home and you have things going on at home, instead of just being on being on a flight every week, going back and forth. And then, you know, with traveling on a weekly basis, there's a lot of travel perks that you get with it. Alt travel, which is just alternate travel. So instead of going back home, you can, you know, take a flight to go to like New York. Obviously not right now, but when things will be normal, you know, I've done a lot of trips where I've gone to Seattle, I've gone to a lot of states and cities that I probably wouldn't have on my normal time because I didn't want to pay for it. And Huron was paying for it, and I probably paid like $10 out of pocket just for the flight difference. And as you're flying and traveling a lot, you'll get a lot of flight points, hotel points, car points, and you can always use those for your personal travel as well. Justin, I'll kick this back over to you.
Yeah, perfect. As far as team culture, what is it like to work on all of our teams? Every team is unique as far as like what capability you're in. But I think the culture in itself is the same across the entire organization. Before I even go into the stuff that's listed on here, I think the culture of Huron itself is like every single person is willing to help you, like go above and beyond. I mean, I've reached out to, when I first started, I reached out to people that I had never ever spoken to, seen anything, just shot them an email and said, hey, I don't understand XYZ. Somebody told me to reach out to you. Like, can we talk? And, you know, and within 5 minutes, you'd have a meeting set up and they'd walk you through whatever your question was. And you just expand your network and you get to know more people. But the overall culture, everyone is always willing to go above and beyond to help you out with any questions that you have. And I feel like it's not cutthroat at all, which I love. But every team is unique. So like your team size when you're actually on site on a project, where you're at, your team size, your project type, what time of year, like all those things are going to have an impact on what type of team culture you might have. You could be on a project that's, you know, 100 people. We were on a very large engagement a couple of years ago, and that we had, I think, 80 or 90 consultants on the ground at one time. And you definitely you get to know a lot of people across all capabilities. But really what comes out of that is you get a lot of tight-knit relationships. I'm still friends with all the people that I worked with on one of my first projects. You network with their networks, and it's great. And like I said, everyone's always willing to help. We always have team events and dinners when working on site. I think we're going to talk about work-life balance next, but one of the greatest things is that everyone always encourages you to make sure that you take that time, because consulting it's work. I mean, it's fun work, it's fast-paced, but like you definitely don't want to burn out, you don't want to get caught up in the grind. So it's very, it's highly encouraged to go have those team dinners, to hop off after work for a couple hours. If you're in a spot where you can go hiking, go out for a hike, go hang out, go watch the sunset, do what you got to do for yourself. And then, and really, I think that drives the culture when you're on site. And it sounds kind of cheesy, but really like that last thing that what it says there, our people make working for Huron what it is. I think it's very, very true, because I think everyone that works for Huron, I've yet to run into someone that I'm like, I don't really want to work with you. Everyone is incredible and always willing to go above and beyond.
Yeah, so just to piggyback off of what Justin was saying, at my last project in Texas, we actually had like weekly team dinners. So one of our hotels had like a little kitchen in it, so we would all, get together and just cook like one day a week. And it was just nice because you develop like those relationships that Justin was talking about. I mean, we'd done like ghost tours, like kickball nights, like anything and everything you could think about. It's just a lot of fun because, after a long day of work, it's just nice to like kick back and just relax and just talk as like friends rather than colleagues. And so, as I mentioned earlier, Huron offers work from home on Fridays. So, like I said, it's optional to go in the office if you're near an office on Fridays. And you can always just take a remote week if you want to. It's, you have things coming up in a week and you just don't feel like traveling for a week. Totally an available option for you. Flexible travel. So, if I've had a time where I had to like be home by a certain time for an appointment or something, and my manager was like willing to work with me for that, which is awesome. And then Huron has unlimited PTO, so it's highly encouraged that you take some. I know that I'm really bad at taking PTO, so my coach will actually be like, hey, you haven't taken PTO in like a couple months, like you should take some time off. And I'm like, okay, you're right, I should take like a 4-day weekend here and there. The culture at Huron is like the best ever. I mean, it's like Justin said, it's not cutthroat, it's like a family. They treat you like a family.
Yeah, just to jump on that even more, as far as work-life balance goes, exactly what Timmy said. Like everyone wants you to, you need to go take your time off. I think the unlimited PTO is a pretty awesome perk, but I think being that it's unlimited, I think we all kind of get caught in this situation where we're like, I don't think I've taken a day off in like 4 months. But it's highly encouraged, and I think Simi is dead on when she says like you'll have like managers and your coach and so on that will tell you like you need to go just take time off. I don't care what day it is, but you need to take some time off. So I think and everyone understands that, and it's actually really it's really great that we have that ability to do that. But with that being said, I think as far as work-life balance goes, you got to make sure you find out what works for you. So on every engagement, you'll have expectations conversations. So you want to make sure you set those expectations early, discuss what works for you. Some people are really great early morning workers, and other people, are done at 8 o'clock at night. Like, my brain just doesn't work, whatever that might be. You want to have those expectations conversations. You set those expectations early, and then obviously reset them as needed. You have those conversations and make sure that your managers and your directors know what works for you. If you're a person that says, when I'm done at the hospital every day, I'm going to, or wherever your organization is, if I'm done at work that day, I'm going to go to the gym for an hour and a half, then I need to eat, and then I can come back and knock out a deliverable. Like, that's just what I need for me. Everyone's very understanding of that. But you definitely have those conversations. Make sure you set a schedule. manage your time. Think it's easy to get caught up and realize that you've been working nonstop and not taking time for yourself, and it's highly encouraged. So take it. So take that time for yourself and understand what you need to do to make sure you stay ahead and stay happy. Like the last thing, that the little things can make a difference. They really can. Like that hour at the gym, or that hour of just sitting and having coffee and watching TV and not doing anything. Like when you're on site, when you're actually gone for a couple days, like that it's what makes all the difference.
Right. Thank you so much, Simi and Justin. And with this slide, just wanted to give you all a few details about our recruiting process. So our deadline for both our internship and analyst roles is going to be on October 4th. And then here, just a few details about our recruiting process. And so we start off with the recruiter call. So that's just used to do an introduction call. They'll go through just some high levels, and then also just gauge your interest in the practice that you are applying for. And then we'll have a behavioral interview, then going into a case interview, and then also having a final round interview, which consists of two back-to-back behavioral style interviews as well. And then for upcoming events, we do have one upcoming on October 23rd, and you can register through our website, and it is also featured on Handshake as well. And then now we will take some time to answer a few questions that you all have.
Yeah, there's been a lot of questions coming in through the chat, so that was a really great presentation. Just wanted to compliment you all on that. Lots of really great information. So the first one that came in is, have you noticed any trends regarding the regarding a shifting strategy during the pandemic within your industry, particularly health? How would you say your team pivoted during this unprecedented period?
Yeah, I mean, strategy definitely changed. When the pandemic first happened, it was very, I think for anyone, it was definitely something, it was an adjustment period. I think for the first month or two, we were all kind of caught off guard, didn't know quite how to react, because a lot of us were in the middle of projects, and all of a sudden hospitals, we weren't traveling, we weren't on site, and hospitals to be honest, didn't really care. They were, about the consulting side, because at that time you're getting overrun with COVID patients, and that's your priority. So, but I will say, like, I think after a month or two, our leadership team is incredible, and they have put together, at least from the healthcare side is what I can speak to accurately, but we've put together multiple resources. We have a newsletter that goes out on how COVID is impacting healthcare still, and what's happening in volumes, what's happening if hospitals are starting to come back. But really, our strategy has shifted now a lot more from the approach that we took before to now, like COVID recovery. We've done a lot of work in actually New York City, where we've worked with the mayor's office in COVID recovery and setting up testing sites and so on and so forth. But we've pivoted now to have, we have multiple documents out on our SharePoint and procedures set up for how we would have approached for example, like department work in a hospital pre-COVID, to the different things that we need to now pay attention to and look for post-COVID until things somewhat come back to the norm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, another question came in that I thought was really interesting is how you stay connected with your colleagues during this pandemic. I know I definitely struggle with that at DePaul. So what are some ways that Huron, enforces staying connected with colleagues during this time?
Yeah, so I can start with that one. So on the higher ed side, on my project team, we're kind of a smaller team. There's about like 20 or so of us. So we have like happy hour every Thursday afternoon, and we all get on video. And at first we would always like have something to talk about, but now, COVID, there's not much going on. No one has any conversations. So what we started doing is started playing games online. So we'll have like chess competitions or like anything. I think one time we had everyone would give me their walk-up song, and so I'd play them, and then we'd have to like guess whose walk-up song that would be from our team. Just like silly fun stuff. I know there's a couple of other things that the higher ed practice as a whole is doing. So we had like a coffee like and bagel time or something like that. It was just like whoever wants to talk, like get on this call, and we'll talk about over coffee or have some breakfast and whatnot and catch up. So that was pretty cool.
That sounds really fun. I definitely would love to adopt some of those ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say very, very similar within healthcare. I think across probably the organization as a whole, like the virtual happy hours are a pretty normal thing now. When we first stopped traveling, I know we did a happy hour every single week with our teams, and actually the very last one, similar to what Sammy was saying, we just played like a random game where we had like $10 million and everyone had to go pick a dream house, and you like went into breakout rooms and worked with people to like find a home and convince everyone else to buy it. But I mean, just little things to like, just to keep everyone connected. But I think everyone does a really good job of just reaching out on teams and just picking somebody you haven't talked to in a few days and just checking in and seeing how things are going. I think that's really important, and everyone does a pretty good job of it.
Awesome. We have another question coming in about what an ideal candidate would look like at Huron. So what are some of the qualifications you'd be looking for in an analyst role?
Yes, so I can go ahead and start off with that one. So some of the qualities that I think would make an ideal candidate that we would look for is adaptability and being open to learning. So we don't expect you to come in knowing everything, but we're mostly looking for those soft skills. So communication skills, critical thinking, and having that solution oriented mindset is definitely some of those qualities that we would look for in a candidate.
Great. And also a logistical question about the analyst role posted in Handshake. How is that determined which practice you would go into, such as higher ed, healthcare? How would that work for students?
Yes, so that is definitely dependent upon your interest. And so within our application, you are able to indicate which practice you are going to be applying for. So unfortunately, you are only able to apply for one practice. And then we also have 3 short essay questions where you're able to just elaborate more on your interest in that certain practice.
That's great. They were also wondering if you have any recommendations or next steps for professional development into tapping into the higher ed consulting field. So what could a student do at this time to become more competitive for that field?
I would definitely say Excel is somewhere you're going to be like best friends with Excel. So definitely develop your Excel skills or any Microsoft skills, Visio if you have started that. And then just overall thinking of like processes that you have on your daily basis, personal ones, and then how can you improve that? Because typically in higher ed, a lot of our service lines are dedicated to business processes, and how can we improve those? So that could be a great mindset to start with.
That's great. Excel is super important. I will say the Career Center offered a skills lab in Excel, and we're hoping to do that again. So for all of you students, definitely keep that on your radar. It'll be promoted on Handshake whenever it comes about next. Another question regarding the hiring process. Is there advice for students who maybe didn't make it through or who don't make it through the initial process? What would be advice for moving forward or future opportunities? How could they best stay in touch?
Yes, I would definitely say to just reach out maybe to your recruiter here and there and just indicating that you would like to just keep in touch for those future opportunities. And we would definitely just keep your information on file for those future opportunities as well.
That's great. So we have a question for Simi and Justin. Why did you choose consulting as a career path?
I'll start. So I chose consulting because I think it was something different. It was a challenge, and it allowed me in different varieties of areas. So I wasn't focused on one specific area, and I majored in operations management. So it was great to see different aspects within a business as a whole, different work streams. And I think just the opportunity to like travel and meet new people was also a great benefit.
For myself, I graduated DePaul with a health science degree, and I was pre-med, and I think you'll run into a lot of consultants that were pre-med, and then went on to get my master's in public health for like health administration. And while I was doing that, I actually, my first year, I ran into a couple of professors that were past consultants and started digging into like what their lifestyle was like, what they did, and that's really what turned me towards consulting, and just like the fast pace of it, being able to actually go in and work with organizations and work with executive level leadership to help them make decisions that are going to impact their day-to-day functioning. And just to be a part of that and be involved in that is what interested me in it. And of course, you know, I'll jump on the travel as well. The travel and the points and the perks are also pretty awesome. But I think the fast pace and the ability to like have an impact on those high level decisions is really great.
Yeah, the travel perks sound awesome. We have another question kind of about that. With COVID and, you know, working from home, a student was wondering if you hope to go back to your usual travel routines, or are you enjoying the work from home, and do you think remote work will be normalized in consulting moving forward?
I can answer first. For me, it's been, I think, a little bit of mix of both. I think there's a part of consulting where having that face-to-face client interaction really matters for the work that you're doing. So like there's a little bit of me that hopes that we can at least go back to like you know, 50%, just so that you can get some of those meetings, some of those interactions that you need to have. But I'm not going to lie and say I don't enjoy working from home. It's nice to be able to wake up in sweats and throw on some sweats and you know, have a cup of coffee and just sit at my table. Like that's not bad. As far as, do I think remote work will be normalized? I do believe that, and I mean, maybe Janae, you can help answer this a little bit more, but I do think that like as a company, we are definitely looking at COVID as a whole and trying to understand where we can do some remote work, and there's, you know, there's a cost savings associated with that as well. So trying to see like where we can actually normalize those portions in while still making sure that we're keeping business needs and client needs at the forefront and making sure we're getting that work done.
Yes, I do agree with that, Justin. And I just feel like Huron as a whole, like their first priority is definitely the safety of their employees. And so they're just keeping on like with the whole pandemic and just monitoring things. And so we don't know what's to come in the future, but that's definitely top of mind for them as we're moving forward.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I remember at first, the first couple of weeks working from home, I'm just super lost. It was just so hard to adjust from, you know, traveling on a week-to-week basis, and then all of a sudden you're home and this is your new normal. I think in the beginning I struggled with a little bit of work-life balance, because for me work was always in a different state, and then home was like home life. I remember I'd be working till like midnight. I'm like, I gotta stop. This isn't healthy. I need to have a normal life again. So definitely an adjustment. I think moving forward, there are conversations happening of, you know, how does Huron see us working and traveling post-COVID? So I think it's going to be more towards that 50% remote and 50% travel, depending on the project and the stage that you are in that project as well.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what happens with a lot of companies and just how the remote aspect continues into the future after COVID. We have another COVID related question regarding the services you provide your clients and how those have shifted. Obviously the in-person piece is, you know, a part of that has changed, but what were some of the examples of how the services you provide your clients that you work with changed because of the COVID impact?
I think on the higher ed side, at least the project that I'm working on, we had to do a lot more calls. So since we're not there physically to see each other and communicate, we've had a lot more calls and, you know, just expressing communication and just reiterating it over and over again, just to make sure that they're understanding and that we keep the project moving along to meet our deadlines, since it will be a huge cost analysis, and, you know, we don't want to push it out any further. So just communicating and, you know, meeting with them on a regular basis and making sure that everyone's on the same page, but then also just being respectful that, you know, this is different. It's hard for people to manage both working from home and working at their regular job, but not physically there at the same time.
Yeah, I think from the healthcare side, like the services we provide our clients, I mean, obviously now it's a lot of, like I said before, just a lot of our work has changed to COVID recovery. how hospitals are going to try to get volumes back that they've lost, and there's obviously been a lot of revenue lost. And then also just in general, like Timmy was saying, a lot of how we provide it has changed. Everything is done virtually now. So we've definitely had to kind of pivot and shift and figure out how to still make those connections with the client and help them make some of those decisions while doing it virtually, while you don't have that same trust and that same level of relationship that you're going to build by like walking into someone's office and talking to them. So I think, yeah, COVID's had that impact, but I think we've definitely, like, I feel like we've chugged along pretty well despite everything happening.
Yeah, that has to be a big change, especially with the recovery of it all. We have another question regarding the onboarding process at Huron, and also maybe how that might affect COVID. So we're curious the details regarding the onboarding process for new hires. How is that happening? What are some of the changes that are happening remotely? Any details you could share would be really helpful for our students.
Yes, so for our onboarding process, our onboarding team was phenomenal in that, you know, after we went remote, they completely shifted the onboarding process and orientation to be remote. And so they're just going through those different modules to get people acclimated with Huron. So everything is definitely just still going, you know, as is, but just in a remote setting.
That's great. We have a new question that just came in for the next application deadline after October 4th. Is there another deadline this year? What would that look like if a student were to apply at a later time?
Mm-hmm. So as of right now, October 4th is our current last standing application deadline. But if we do have any that, you know, come up, or if we look to extend it, then we would go ahead and keep those postings up after that date.
Great, thank you. We're also wondering where students could find information about internship opportunities at Huron.
Yes, so our internship opportunities will be posted on our websites, but currently now we have reached the deadline for our internships, so we are just currently hiring for our analyst roles. So the October 4th date is the one that will be applicable to the analyst roles, but our internship is currently done with our interview process.
Perfect. We have a student wanting to know about your most fulfilling experience working at Huron.
Yeah, I can start. I feel like from the day that I started, everyone was so welcoming, and I have received just a bunch of emails from different, you know, our iMatter groups just like welcoming me. And then I've also received like different mentors. And so I think one of the most fulfilling moments was me participating with a program through our Huron's Helping Hands. So with a program called Ladder Up. And so every Saturday at the beginning of this year, I was able to go to a site with other Huron employees to help people within lower income communities file their tax returns. So I had never filed a tax return before, so it was a very humbling experience, but just definitely a great opportunity to just meet people across the firm, but to also do something good for the community. So I would say that's probably one of my fondest memories so far of working with Huron.
I would say like from like to jump off of what Janae was saying, from like a day of service type of standpoint, I think the most fulfilling was also like a day of service last year where we were able to actually go to like a local food bank and spend a few hours in the morning just meeting the people that work there and helping them move pallets and do all kinds of stuff. But it was really like the reason why that was so fulfilling for me was because literally that week on my project site, we had done the same thing for a food bank that was strictly providing food to like the locals of Albuquerque that were like lower income and couldn't quite get all of the supplies that they needed. And just when we combined the work that we did there with the work that we did for day of service, it was fulfilling is the right word, because it was like it had nothing to do with work. It had nothing to do with client needs or anything like that. It was just like an opportunity to go work with your team members and colleagues and just do something amazing for the community.
Yeah, I would say mine was also relating to day of service. So last year, I volunteered at Ronald McDonald, so that was really nice to, you know, cook meals for families that have children that are going through terrible things. Just nice to like provide something and give back to somebody other than a client or yourself, and just help someone out, even if it's just cooking a meal for somebody else.
Yeah, that's great that Huron provides all those opportunities to get involved with the community. I think that really shows the company values. We have another question from a student looking to know about how they can share their healthcare experience on their resume. So let's say they've worked in the field and now they're looking to transition into consulting. What would be the best way to share their healthcare experience on their resume?
Justin, do you want to speak to this one?
Sorry, yeah, I thought that was directed at you. My bad.
That's okay.
I actually, to be honest, I think like resume building is like a skill, and I think all the folks here with that work within the career center and everything are probably like your best folks to go to get advice on that. But for me, I personally had my resume reviewed by multiple people. I think it's important to note like the type of healthcare work that you're doing. I mean, I think Huron will look at everything as a whole, but it's important to note the stuff that's like truly impactful to like the types of positions that you're applying for. Like if, you know, if you, I don't even know, I can't really come up with a poor example, but I would say list all of your healthcare work, but make sure that it's at least relevant to what you're applying for. The first resume I ever wrote, not necessarily for Huron, but I had a job on there that had absolutely nothing to do. It was just like a job I did in college that had nothing to do with the job I was applying for. And I was advised by folks that are great at resume writing that the employer is not really, they don't really care that you worked at Wendy's. Like they want to know what you're doing for them now. And so I will probably pivot it back to Emily or folks that are actually more versed in resume writing than I am. But I would say definitely include it, but just make sure it's actually relevant to what you're going to be doing.
Yeah, I would also add on that too, is that if you're going to be applying to a job that maybe you haven't had like a lot of experience in, making sure to tailor your resume to the job that you're applying for, and looking into maybe shifting some of those bullet points, like not to, you know, go ahead and like, you know, blow up your whole resume, but just to make sure that it's applicable to the role that you're applying for, as Justin was saying.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'm going to share a resource in the chat for how you can make an appointment to get your resume reviewed. Because as Justin and Janae mentioned, having another set of eyes take a look at your resume is really important. Additionally, I wanted to share, we have a lot of handouts available in the career library that include structuring a resume, resume design tips. So I'm going to share that within the chat as well. Perfect. Thank you all. And we have another question from a student regarding training program for new hires. So what does that look like? Obviously, the onboarding sounds like it's been adapted to remote really well. What would the training program look like once you're already onboarded at Huron?
Yeah, so I can start. So on the higher ed side, I was part of they call it the CCC, which is the Cloud Capability Center. So these are all new analysts. We're all in this room. Basically, it's kind of like school. You're in there, you know, from 8 to 5, and all the senior leaders are coming in there and they're reviewing, you know, what does it mean in higher ed? What does the higher ed practice look like? And then going into more granular levels of specific areas within higher ed. So grants management, supply chain, et cetera, et cetera. So I would say that program lasted about a month before I even stepped foot on client side. I think that's different across different service lines, but I know we're actually just had our first one start virtual, first one of this year. I think either this week or last week. So that's exciting. They just hired another like 30 people. And so you meet a lot of good friends there. I have like 2 or 3 good friends from that. And it's been about a year and a half since I was part of the CCC.
Yeah, and from the healthcare side, I think very similar approach. We have right now we're doing all of our. I'm part of the care optimization training team, so we actually are right now in the process of new hire training, and a lot of it is just set up. We have modules set up that have been obviously worked on now that we have a virtual setting. Where there will be scheduled out so that you have different Zoom meetings that we get on video and make sure we're interacting with everyone. But walking through not only just the high level tools and processes that you're looking for in healthcare, but moving on from that, we actually have what's called an OJT, or on the job training. And that's usually like your first 2 weeks, 3 weeks that you're actually on a project site or assigned to an engagement, where we have an entire list of items that we'd like for you to get done. And sometimes it can take you 4 months to get some items done, but there's the majority of those that we want you to be able to check off and make sure that you're prepared and understand the tools and are getting in front of clients and understand and comfortable with the work that's coming your way. But you won't just be thrown into the fire before you go through those trainings and then have that OJT.
That's great. Well, that seems to be all of the questions for today. And I know I want to be mindful of everyone's time. So I wanted to launch a quick poll, just really quick, to our students, and then to share Huron's next event that they're having on bias. And it's currently posted on a Handshake. And it's understanding bias. And so I'm going to share that in the chat. So make sure to definitely register for that. I also want to share the Career Center is hosting a global coffee hour on job search basics. We're hosting that this Friday from 3 to 4. So we would love to see you there. And thank you so much to Janae, to Simi, and to Justin. We had such a great discussion, and this was really comprehensive on the practices at Huron and the culture. So thank you for sharing and for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you all so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Janae, is there, for students to follow up, what would be the best way that you would recommend connecting with Huron after this event?
Yes, so in the chat, I am going to put our recruiting email address. So if you do have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to that email.
Perfect. All right. And just so everyone knows as well, we'll be sending all of this information to you over email. So if there's anything that you wanted to review or double check on, we'll be sending that over anyone who registered on Handshake as well. So thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks, everyone.